Hi guys, John here, and today we're going to do our first little lesson video, I guess, into the SynthAxe lesson video series, where I'm going to go through some of Allan's SynthAxe tunes, whether they were played live or just recorded only, and sort of go through them and talk about either how they're different from the way that Allan performed them live, or you know, why they can't really be played on a regular guitar. I've been watching Mike Bocelli's Beatles lessons videos, which I think are incredible, and I really like how he gives a bit of a backstory and some history behind the songs, so I'm going to try to do the same. So thanks, Mike, for the idea. I'm just totally ripping him off. And if you're a big Beatles fan and haven't seen any of his stuff, I highly suggest it, because it's pretty dead on accurate. So it's great for a Beatles geek like me, because I wish that was there for the Allan stuff, but I guess I'm the dummy that has to do that. So anyway, let's go on to the lesson. So we're going to start with Non-Brewed Condiment, because as far as the SynthAxe tunes, it's really not too complicated. And this is like the third time I'm doing a video on it, but this will be the last time, because now I get to use the SynthAxe and to show you the whole thing. So Non-Brewed Condiment was written sometime in the middle of 1985, shortly after Allan got the SynthAxe, and the name Non-Brewed Condiment actually comes from a malt vinegar substitute that's used in one of Allan's favorite foods, fish and chips. So the idea for the name of the tune was, since the SynthAxe is like a guitar but different, or guitar-like, it's kind of like how Non-Brewed Condiment is like or similar to malt vinegar, or I think he also equated to like Miracle Whip instead of mayonnaise, which I find disgusting. So I guess this was the first piece that he wrote with the SynthAxe, so his idea was, well, it's guitar-like, but it's not really a guitar, and that's similar to Non-Brewed Condiment. So this piece is actually pretty interesting for a couple of reasons, one of them being that the entire piece is written entirely in fifths. Both the chords and the solo is actually in fifths. Now, Allan, pretty much for every SynthAxe tune, dabbles in fifths somewhere, whether it's a little section or it's a lick or whatever. But out of the three main pieces that were written in fifths, Looking Glass, actually the chord harmony for the solo is in standard, and Allan's solo's in standard. And for Sphere of Innocence, the entire chordal part is in fifths, but the solo's in standard. For this tune, the chords and the solo is in fifths. The other interesting thing about this tune is that the head actually has a melody that Allan plays to it, which is a little unusual. I can't really think of too many other tunes that he wrote that has that. Something like Temporary Fault or Low Levels, High Stakes has something similar. And for the sound, the chord sound is this kind of like marimba sound. And another interesting thing is, for someone that always said that they hated that percussive kind of sound, for the initial attack sound that he used for the SynthAxe was always this kind of something with a sharp attack, like an electric piano or this kind of marimba sound, or even a bell. And it was usually blended with something like a horn sound for the sustain, or strings, or in this instance, the sound itself is very simple, so it has a long kind of sustain to it with an initial attack. And of course it makes sense that when Allan first got the SynthAxe and he got an Oberheim, he was just messing around with patches. So the sound for this is actually pretty simple. And for the solo and the head part, the head melody, Allan said he was trying to mimic like a fake violin, and you can kind of hear it. And again, it makes sense because the entire thing is tuned in fifths, so I guess that's what he was going for. On the record, the head melody is played with the SynthAxe with that kind of violin sound, but it's also doubled with an electric guitar. And I'm going to assume that this is probably that 5-string electric that Allan had sometimes played solos with, like in The Mystery. And I also wonder if the actual head melody was written on this and not the SynthAxe. Not only was Non-Brewed Condiment one of Allan's most popular tunes, but it was used heavily for promotion for this record. A flexi disc, which is like a small flexible vinyl, was included with the January 1986 edition of Guitar Player magazine, and the B-side of it was Robert Fripp's Easter Sunday. And they also used it for promotion for the actual SynthAxe. And this was the first time that Allan's fans would have heard any new material or even the SynthAxe itself, because a Tabercrom was released, I believe, in May of 1986. The first time Non-Brewed Condiment was played live was the Frankfurt Jazz Festival, February 16th, 1986, and you can find that performance pretty easily, not only online, but you can also buy it on DVD. I think it was recorded for TV. That was also the first public time that Allan used the SynthAxe live. And Allan played the tune on the SynthAxe from 1986 to 1990, and pretty much used the same sounds the entire time, and never played this tune with a trio, except for a very small time in late 1986 when he was opening up for Chick Corea as a trio. So instead of using keyboards, Allan just used backing tracks for the chord sounds and would improvise over that. So even though Allan used the SynthAxe for the last time live in March of 1990, the last time Allan played Non-Brewed Condiment on the SynthAxe was February of 1990. So on that March show, he actually started to use a double neck. So one neck, the top neck, was tuned in fifths, so Allan could play the chords and the head melody on that neck, and then when he went to solo, he would use the standard tune neck. And then in about 1992, Allan then just got rid of the double neck and then adopted the entire piece to be played on standard tune guitar, and that's the videos that I've shown in the past. And I'll touch upon how they're a little different in this video, because I can actually switch tunings easily and show you how Allan played it in standard and then how it was played in fifths. The structure of Non-Brewed Condiment is pretty similar to some of the other Allan tunes we've seen before, probably most similar to Devil Take the Hindmost. For Devil, there's a head structure, and then once it goes to the solo, the improviser pretty much plays as long as they want within a loose framework of G minor, and then cues the rest of the band to say, okay, now I'm finished, and they play a certain set of chords that they follow. And then they can take another chorus and keep on going. But there's this loose improvisational aspect of it, followed by playing over specific chords. And that's what Non-Brewed Condiment has. It has a head structure, and then when it gets to the solo, the improviser plays loosely within D minor, but the difference is it's a set amount of time, and then you're following a certain set of chords that you have to improvise over. And Allan pretty much kept that structure for its entire existence live playing. So from 1986 to about 1995, which was the last time that Allan played as a four-piece. After that, I don't think Allan actually ever played the tune live. He might have on a one-off or something with if he had a keyboard player, but that entire time it was always played as a four-piece. So that's everything I can think of about Non-Brewed Condiment. It's got a lot more history than some of the other tunes that I'm going to go over. And finally, I want to thank Luigi Masella, I think I said your name right, for actually programming these sounds, because without it I wouldn't be able to do these videos. So thank you so much, Luigi. And we're using the Arturia Matrix 12 VST, which is, Allan used Oberheim's. He used an expander and a Matrix 12, and the only difference is the expander has half the amount of voices as the Matrix 12, so we're using that. And the solo sound also he programmed, which is also on the Matrix 12 VST. So thank you, and let's get started. So as I mentioned, this tune was all written completely in fifths, so I'm going to switch back and forth between fifths and standard to show you how they're a little different. Pretty much the short answer is the standard version is identical, except that most of the lowest notes are removed. So for the SynthAxe, in fifths, it's all four-note chords, and for standard guitar, it's mostly three-note chords. So also, I'm not going to show you the chord charts because, again, it's going to be really difficult to do that because not everyone's tuned in fifths. So I'm going to put the tab of the voicing on the bottom as well as the standard notation. The other interesting thing, actually before I forget, is we have Steve Hunt's handwritten chart for this. And here it is. And it's identical to what's on the record, so that helps out a lot. And when I was mentioning before about it being played in standard, Jimmy Johnson seems to have a habit not that it's a bad thing or a habit, is for any of the tunes that Allan would play, he just always played the lowest note of Allan's voicing, instead of sort of making up his own melody. And that doesn't, not all the time, but for example, for this tune, he's playing the lowest note of Allan's chord. So when he adopted it to standard, and he's playing 3-note chords, Jimmy Johnson was playing the lowest note of the SynthAxe chord that Allan wasn't playing. So Allan would be playing 3 notes of the chord, and Jimmy would be playing the lowest note. When it's in fifths, Allan was doing everything. Alright, so now we'll actually get to the chords. So the beginning head part starts off like this. So I call this an F6 sus4, but you can also think of it as a B flat add 9. And it's this really like 2-chord cell for the entire, not head, but we'll see this later during the solo section. So it goes from this chord, so I guess a B flat add 9, to this here. Now this one's a little weird because it has the notes, I have to think of it in standard, A, D, C, and then F. So it's kind of hard to name. It's almost like an A minor 11 with a flat 6. I don't remember what I originally called it, but if you're not thinking of the lowest note as the root, A is your root, but you're thinking, let's say D is your root, then it's a D minor 7. So I'm going to call this D minor 7. And then it moves up to that first chord, but now instead of the 5th fret, it's now the 10th fret. So it's now moved up a fourth, and this is E flat add 9. So that entire thing you can think of as being in the key of B flat major, but I don't think Allan treats it that way, because in the melody there, I think there's an E and then it goes to an E flat somewhere. So even though the chords all belong to one key, I don't think Allan's treating it as such. So this is what the first few chords sound like. Now that I switched over to standard, this is how Allan was playing it in standard. He actually plays the full chord here, so F, C, B flat, and D. And then moves to that, so that's why I said F makes a little bit more sense. Think of it like this instead of a B flat add 9, but again, the name's not important, it's just how it sounds. Then he moves to that A minor 11-y kind of sound, or D minor 7. And then to the B flat 6 sus4 or E flat add 9. And we'll also see this in the solo section. These come back. And then in fifths. Same chords. So this next section I'd say is the trickiest because it doesn't appear in the solo section. So these chords only appear during the beginning, the middle, and the end. So they're not improvising over this. And the chords, at least in fifths, are a little weird to play. So I'll play it first in fifths. So naming the chords, this first chord here I believe I called a B flat major 7. And then that moves down to E flat. And that happens twice. Now notice how the chord actually looks. It's in fifths, it's 14, 15, 15, 12. Because we're going to see the next chord is a variation of this. So what ends up happening is we're taking the 5th and we're moving it to the sharp 4, sharp 11, so then it becomes a major 7, sharp 11 chord. So now we have this voicing here, which I believe I called it a A flat major 7, sharp 11. And then I think it goes to D flat major 7. They're all major 7, sharp 11. So A flat, major 7, sharp 11. D flat, major 7, sharp 11. And then this A sus4, actually Allan plays it like this with these 3 fingers. Well, 4 fingers, but these 3 fingers instead of borrowing it how I do it. And then it goes to this sort of strange chord, which I would consider D sharp add sharp 11 but with no fifth, because we basically only have an F sharp, a D, and a G sharp, and then another D. So it's just a weird triad, and it's unusual that Allan's actually using the same note twice in the chord. Usually every note is unique. So right now we have this. And then it plays those first two chords again, but now as major 7 sharp 11. So B flat major 7 sharp 11 to E flat major 7 sharp 11. And then the next, all these chords are the same voicing. So then A flat major 7 sharp 11, D flat major 7 sharp 11, then all the way to G flat major 7 sharp 11, and then back to the first chord of the song. And that repeats twice, and then it goes to the solo. So now this is how it's different in standard. Again, Allan plays it pretty much identically. The only difference is he's removing the lowest note of the chord. So it looks like this in standard. And then back to the... So for all of those chords, it's the same exact voicing, just removing the lowest note. But what's interesting is, I was thinking about it for a little bit, that pretty much all of that part, yeah, all of it can be played as the full 4-note chord version of it, but it would look something like this. Let's see if I remember it. Like that. Took a bunch of tries because I had to remember it. But yeah, so that's how it would actually sound in standard. But again, when Allan plays it, he's just removing the bottom note. So again, without the bottom note. And then in fifths. So that's that part. So everything that we just played was the head of the song, and this is where the meat of the solo really is. So I'll play through it just quickly. That's that whole thing, and it just repeats, and it's the same part except that the last chord's a little bit different, and it's really a 2-chord cell within a larger cell. Again, it's very pattern oriented with Allan. So I think of that first 2-chord cell as a D minor add 9 to a D major 7. And what's interesting, if we switch to standard, and remember when we are playing in fifths, it's F, C, G, D, A, E. So those last 4 notes, when we swap them around, are E, A, D, G. So now if we go to standard, now we have E, A, D, G. And if we take that same voicing, we get this. Sounds very different, but it's the same notes. And thinking the same way, it's just like the opposite mirror image of it. And we've seen this chord before. Allan used it in 0274. It goes like... something like that. And even for this major 7 voicing, I mean, it's pretty simple. Uses it in funnels. So we've seen these little voicings before, but now it's done in a 5th sense. So first it starts out in D, D minor add 9 to D major 7. Then it does it in F. So F minor add 9 to F major 7, and then to D minor add 9 to D major 7. And then the last chord, it says A flat major 7 sharp 11, and it looks like a regular C major chord, but with the G in the bass. And we've seen Allan use this before. I know like the Dominant Plague use it, and also A Tabacron uses a version of this chord, but let's see if I can play this. I hope that was right. I'm still working on that one, just that section, but I'm pretty confident in it. So we've seen that chord before, but now in a fifth sense it's A flat major 7 sharp 11. And then it repeats again, but now that chord is transposed up a perfect fourth to D flat. And that whole cell repeats. Now, what's interesting is that the first time that gets played for the when the new soloist arrives, that happens 3 times. And I think it's supposed to be 1 time by itself, and then the 2 is when they start soloing, because that happens 3 times, and then they play the head chords, and then once that chord sequence comes back, it's 2 times, and that always repeats. But anytime a new soloist arrives, that first part is always played 3 times. So in this case, that's 3 times. And then it goes to a modulated version of those head chords that we just saw. So before we saw it on I call it B flat. It's B flat to D minor 7 to E flat add 9. But now it's moved up a perfect fifth. So now instead of playing it on the 5th fret starting on the 5th string, we're playing the same exact thing but now starting on the 4th string. So now this would be the same chords just modulate up, so this would be F, add 9. Same cell now to A minor 7. And then to B flat, add 9. Now what's interesting is that these chords always move up in the same relationship, but these two don't. It would be here, but it moves up to E minor 7. Moves up a whole step from there. So that's where the key change kind of happens to now revert back to moving it back down to the original way it was presented. So we have F major add 9 to A minor 7, B flat major add 9, E minor 7, and then back to B flat, A minor 7. I'm sorry, D minor 7, E flat. Did I say major 7? I can't even keep track. B flat add 9, D minor 7, E flat add 9, then back to. Alright, now I'll show you how it's done in standard. Now again, for standard, it's the same chords, it's just with the top note removed except for one of them. And really the reasoning is that the range is so wide on these when you're playing in fifths. So like doing something like this, you know, is so wide that you don't have enough fingers to play it. So Allan just removed the bottom note because Jimmy Johnson will be playing it. But for one chord he does it with. So for standard, he plays it like this, which is the top 3 notes that we saw before. But now he goes to this D major 7, which is also a very popular Allan voicing. So for that chord he plays it as 4 notes. And then this sus2 to this major 7 to this sus2 to this major 7. I mean, it's the same thing, F sus2 to the F major 7, D sus2 to D major 7. But remember, when we're playing in fifths, because everything is straight fifths, anytime you play 3 notes together on a string, that's a sus2. Same thing. So all those sus2 chords are really the top part of this. Oh, I'm in I'm in standard. Yeah. So Allan's just really doing like this. He's kind of playing it like that again, just removing the bottom note. So that sounds like this. Whoops. Again, that A flat is really low. I mean, you can play the A flat here, and then just repeat the same thing again. Where he plays the F sus2, but then you can put the D flat in the bass. So that's how that part really goes in standard. And then for the next part, again, he's playing the same thing that we played here, just now a fifth higher. So now it's, here, I can't even remember the names of the chords. See if I mess this up. To this. There we go, and then back to. So I'll play it in standard, and then I'll play it in fifths. And in fifths. There it is, and like I said, that's the meat of the solo that repeats over and over again. The only difference is at the very, very end of the song, after both improvisers go and they play, that part comes back again. The second time is where it changes. The difference here is you go to G flat major 7 sharp 11, and you play that 3 times, and then the last time Allan usually goes up an octave higher. That's it. That's really the whole piece. Like I said, it's relatively simple. The few chords there are a little weird, but that's really the meat of it. The only thing I really want to go over is the head part, and really just show off the sounds. Again, thanks to Luigi for it. It's a little tricky to play on the SynthAxe, and again, the recording is actually doubled with an electric guitar, and I think that's why Allan sort of started playing the head part more consistently sort of later. And again, it's in fifths. When he played it in standard, it was actually even harder to play, but he only played it like that for a couple of years. For the most part, it was played this way. So I don't want to go into too much detail because I already did a video about that. I just want to sort of play through it so you can kind of hear what it sounds like. That's as close as it's gonna get. Still working on it, and it's getting hot in here. But yeah, it's pretty much the sound that he used, and also the sound that he used for the solo was pretty similar. It's trying to think of other stuff like that, or even yeah, just some little licks that I can think of that I was trying to use to sort of calibrate playing this. So yeah, that's pretty much Non-Brewed Condiment. I'll actually play a little bit. I'll record it so you can actually hear what it sounds like instead of coming through my computer monitors. So yeah, this is Non-Brewed Condiment in fifths and in standard. So stay tuned for more, and thanks for joining.